The NBA draft has always been a time of success or failure for every franchise who hopes to pick up the next cornerstone in their success in the NBA Finals, or at least in the NBA playoffs for some franchises. But today we're going to be exploring the 2010 NBA draft and seeing just how bad some of the picks ended up being and whether or not some of the higher draft picks were worth it then and if they're worth it now. Today we're going to be looking at the top 10 picks in the 2010 NBA draft and seeing where they're at now and how the pick looks going back in time. If you guys enjoy this type of content, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, as we will be going through every NBA draft in the last few years and maybe even farther back if you guys really enjoy this. If you do, once again, hit the like button. Thank you for watching, and let's get right into this.
With the first pick in the 2010 NBA draft, the Washington Wizards select John Wall from the University of Kentucky.
Throughout the 2000s, the Washington Wizards were a borderline playoff team that often missed the mark or lost in the first round, even under the leadership of all-star point guard Gilbert Arenas. So, in 2010, they found themselves with the #1 overall pick, and they stepped up to the podium and took John Wall, a point guard from Kentucky. Wall had offers from multiple top schools in the country, including Kentucky, Duke, Kansas, Miami, and North Carolina State. And according to ESPN, he was viewed as the most athletic player in the entire draft by most scouts, and also the most athletic point guard in the entire draft. In college, he averaged 16.6 points, 4.3 rebounds, 6.5 assists in just one season. This was an overall consensus top pick, and the Wizards drafted Wall, hoping to have him become the cornerstone of their franchise for years to come. While that did happen to some extent, he did have a long tenure in Washington. From 2010 to 2019, he played for the Wizards, but they fell short in the playoffs, and him and his co-star Bradley Beal struggled to turn their talent into long-term success. Due to his playoff style and explosiveness, Wall struggled with injuries throughout his career, and despite 5 All-Star appearances and an All-NBA team, Wall was traded from Washington to Houston, and since then he has never been the same. Multiple Achilles injuries have left him without much playing time in Houston, only playing about 40 games in a Rocket jersey throughout 3 seasons. Now he is on the Clippers after being signed in free agency, and for his career, he has averaged 19.1 points, 4.3 rebounds, and 9 assists per game on 43% from the field and 32% from 3. Not a terrible bust, but at the end of the day, he did not live up to expectations.
With the second pick in the 2010 NBA draft, the Philadelphia 76ers select Evan Turner from Ohio State University.
Second overall, and probably the first real bust in this draft, Evan Turner, a small forward from Ohio State, was drafted by the Philadelphia 76ers. He was seen as a versatile small forward who could play defense and offense to a high degree, and he was seen as one of the most NBA-ready players in the draft. In 3 years at OSU, he averaged 15 points, 6.8 rebounds, and 4.1 assists per game on 50% shooting from the field and 36% from three-point land. Because of his success and his experience at the college level, Turner was selected second overall by the 76ers, expecting to make them finally a better team and a contending team. After 5 relatively successful seasons, Turner had his best year in 2013 at 25 years old, averaging 17 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 1 steal per game on 42% field goal percentage. This would be his last true productive season in the NBA, however, as he left Philadelphia for Indiana and Boston the next 3 seasons. After a poor outing in Boston, Turner somehow received a 4-year, $70 million contract from the Blazers in the 2016 offseason, the year that so many undervalued or overvalued players received massive contracts. This contract was quickly scrutinized as one of the worst in the league, and Turner has been out of the league since 2019, where he played for the Atlanta Hawks a very minimal role. For his career, he averaged 9.7 points per game, 4.6 rebounds per game, and 3.5 assists per game on 43% field goal percentage and 29% from the three-point land. Turner has went down as one of the biggest busts in the NBA history, at least to the extent that he was drafted.
With the third pick in the 2010 NBA draft, the New Jersey Nets select Derrick Favors of Georgia Tech.
At the third spot, we have the first big man off the board, power forward Derrick Favors from Georgia Tech. he was seen as once again a return to the traditional values of an NBA big man. We will see this as a theme across the entire 2010 draft. Not any of the centers taken in the top 10 have a mobile or a three-point shooting ability. Favors was seen as an athletic big man with outstanding rebounding and blocking potential, giving him the team hope that he would become the best center in the draft. Obviously, we know today that this did not happen. His post play was relatively successful, but he did not have much or very little mid-range or three-point ability. At one season in Georgia Tech, he averaged 12 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, 1 assist, 2 blocks per game, all while shooting 61% from the field. And with these statistics, the New Jersey Nets selected him 3rd overall in the draft. Favors only played 56 games, however, for the Nets before being traded to Utah with Devin Harris for point guard Darren Williams. Favors would spend 10 seasons in Utah, playing 644 games for the Jazz, and has since spent time with the Pelicans and now the OKC Thunder in the previous NBA season. For his career, he averages about 11 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, and 1 assist per game, shooting 53.4% from the field, which is a very good average for an overall career role player. 1.2 blocks per game and 790 total NBA games played. Favors has never become the star they expected him to be, but he has only seen the all-rookie team in 2011. With that, he has always been a quality NBA center and has provided some massive backup minutes.
With the 4th pick in the 2010 NBA draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Wesley Johnson of Syracuse University.
4th overall and possibly the biggest bust in this draft, Wesley Johnson, the small forward from Syracuse, was an athletic, defensive-minded center whose offensive game was lagging behind but did fill in nicely during his final season in college. He spent 2 mediocre years at Iowa State, only averaging about 12 points per game, 6 rebounds, and 1 assist, with a steal per game too. He sat out 1 year by transferring to Syracuse, where he would then average his final career high 16.5 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, and 1 or 2 blocks per game. Despite 2 mediocre seasons, Johnson impressed the NBA scouts enough to be drafted 4th overall by the Minnesota Timberwolves, even though he was already the age of 23 years old. Johnson was undoubtedly the worst pick in this draft, as he never blossomed in anything more than a bench player in his 9 seasons in the NBA. For his career, he only averaged 7 points per game, 3 rebounds, and 1 assist, shooting an abysmal 40% from the field, and even worse, 33% from 3. He has fizzled out of the NBA since 2018, where he played for the Washington Wizards, and most of his career has been overshadowed by the time James Harden sent him into the shadow realm and broke his ankles.
The 5th pick in the 2010 NBA draft, the Sacramento Kings select Demarcus Cousins from the University of Kentucky.
With the 5th pick in the draft, the Sacramento Kings stepped up to the podium and selected center from Kentucky, Demarcus Cousins, teammate of John Wall and another John Calipari prospect coming out of Kentucky. Despite a strong temper, Cousins was heralded as another traditional style center, yet he showed constant dominance throughout his time in Kentucky. He averaged 15 points, 9 rebounds, and 1 assist per game during his 1 year at Kentucky, while shooting a solid 55% from the field. Because of this, the Kings desperately needed a big man. They drafted him 5th overall, hoping he could turn the franchise around. While that never quite happened, Cousins did quickly become a top center in the NBA. He peaked with 4 All-Star games and 2 All-NBA appearances, and basically one of the consensus top 3 centers in the NBA at the peak of his career. Despite this, though, the Kings never put a quality team around Cousins, and he would not reach the playoffs a single time in 7 seasons in Sacramento. At the top of his career, he was traded to the Pelicans to team up with Davis, but at this time, injuries began to harm Cousins and his career. Multiple ACL/knee injuries and other Achilles heel injuries have sidelined him for most of the last few years of his career. He only played 65 games in 2 seasons at New Orleans, but he was able to make the playoffs a few times, and though he hasn't broken through to a championship just yet, he has been jumping around as a role player / a starter or backup center on multiple contending teams, and is still just 31 years old. Overall, Cousins did waste much of his prime before injuries on a bad Sacramento team, and injuries have derailed a potentially dominant career, but it's hard to label him a bust due to the sheer talent he had beforehand.
With the 6th pick in the 2010 NBA draft, the Golden State Warriors select Ekpe Udo from Baylor University.
The 6th overall selection was taken by the Golden State Warriors, who had two young up-and-coming guards in Monte Ellis and Steph Curry. 6th pick was Ekpe Udo, a center out of Baylor, who was another traditional but a reliable defensive center in his 3 seasons in college. He spent 2 fairly unremarkable years at Michigan, playing 67 games where he only averaged 6 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 1 assist, but he did total 2.5 blocks a game. After transferring to Baylor in 2010, Udo broke out, averaging 14 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and 4 blocks a game, allowing him to be named Big 12 All-Defensive Team and making the All-Region team for the NCAA. Because of this dominant season, the Warriors drafted Udo to become their future center beside Steph Curry and Monte Ellis. He only played about 1.5 seasons with the Warriors, though, before being traded to Milwaukee for up-and-coming center Andrew Bogut. Across his career, Udo played for 4 total NBA teams, but he has never really reached his potential. He would spend his last season at 31 with the Jazz in 2018. Across his career, he only had 3.5 points per game, 2.9 rebounds per game, and 0.7 assists per game on a low 45% from the field, but 1 block per game. He spent his last few years playing overseas at a relatively effective level, but Udo never quite made it on the NBA level, and he will always be labeled as a bust due to this.
With the 7th pick in the 2010 NBA draft, the Detroit Pistons select Greg Monroe from Georgetown University.
The 4th big man off the board in the top 7 picks, Greg Monroe, a center out of Georgetown, was selected by the Detroit Pistons due to an aging Ben Wallace looking to leave within the next few seasons, so they decided to step up to the podium and take his hopeful replacement. In 2 seasons at Georgetown, he averaged 14.5 points, 8 rebounds, 1.5 blocks, and also shot 54% from the field, leading to him being drafted 7th overall. Monroe spent 5 seasons with the Pistons where he averaged 14 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists, shooting 50% from the field, which are fairly solid numbers for a young NBA center. Because of this, though, Monroe was a premium free agent in 2015, getting offers from multiple top free agent destinations. However, Monroe decided to sign with the Milwaukee Bucks on a 3-year, $50 million contract where he would play about 170 games for the Bucks, tallying a relatively positive statistic rate. However, he was the main piece allowing the Bucks to trade for point guard Eric Bledsoe at the time. Since that trade, though, Monroe has not found his footing on a dominant team or a place as a role player on a contending team. He has bounced around the league, playing for about 7 teams in the last 3 seasons on multiple 10-day contracts, hoping to stick on one of these teams. Surprisingly, though, Monroe has remained in the league as of last season, and he still has a contract with the Timberwolves to play next year. Whether we see him or not, really won't know until it happens. So far, though, Monroe has averaged 13 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, and 2 assists per game across his 10 NBA seasons. Nothing crazy, but a respectable career for a guy who lost his footing as a star center early in his years.
The Los Angeles Clippers select Alfred Camino from Wake Forest University.
Rounding out our final 3 spots, at the 8th selection, Alfred Camino, a small forward from Wake Forest, a guy that had massive defensive potential but needed to improve his offensive game, was selected by the Clippers, hoping to bolster their wing talent and develop him into at least a quality 3-and-D player. While this never happened in Los Angeles, Aminu had 2 solid seasons in college, averaging 14 points per game and 9 rebounds per game, making the All-ACC team in 2010. While his first year in the LA came to an end much earlier than expected, after his rookie season, he was included in the package to bring Chris Paul to LA, sending him to the New Orleans Hornets alongside fellow Clipper Eric Gordon. Since then, Aminu has never become a star NBA player. However, he consistently found himself with at least a role player position on multiple playoff contending teams, most notably the Trailblazers, where he played for about 5 seasons. The last few years, though, have been difficult for Aminu. He has most recently signed a 10-day contract with the Celtics last season, which was voided after the 10 days. It is likely that he is done at 31 years old, but through 11 seasons, Aminu averaged 7.5 points, 6 rebounds, and 1 assist per game on 42% field goal percentage and 33% from the three-point line. Not an outstanding selection considering the players that are going to follow Aminu in the last 2 selections, but overall a respectable role-playing career.
With the 9th pick in the 2010 NBA Draft, the Utah Jazz select Gordon Hayward from Butler University.
The ninth spot featured a young up-and-coming underdog story. Under the leadership of head coach Brad Stevens at Butler, small forward Gordon Hayward led a relatively underdog, unknown Butler basketball team to 2 massively successful seasons. One of these seasons was a disappointing national championship loss where Hayward's final shot barely bounced off the rim in the final seconds, leading to a loss to the Duke Blue Devils at the time. After this, though, Hayward finished his college career with 14 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, and 2 assists per game, while shooting a high 47% from the field and 38% from 3. With the 9th pick, the Jazz stepped up and selected Gordon Hayward, not knowing just how great he would be for them during his time in Utah. Through 7 seasons, he only averaged 15 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists, making 1 All-Star game in 2016. After that All-Star year, though, Hayward got signed to a relatively large contract to team up with Kyrie Irving and Jason Tatum in Boston. However, he only played 1 game his first year in Boston as he experienced an extremely brutal knee injury in the game against the Cavaliers, which sidelined him for the entire season. After spending a few years in Boston, he was signed to a massive 4-year, $120 million contract, but he did not return to his all-star caliber level. The Hornets signed him to that, hoping they would allow him to train and progress back to where he was at, but he has not been able to find that spot again and has remained as a second/third tier player throughout the remainder of his career. But at the end of the day, a fairly solid pick at the 9th spot.
With the 10th pick in the 2010 NBA draft, the Indiana Pacers select Paul George of Fresno State University.
And to round out the 10 selections in the top 10 of the 2010 NBA draft, Paul George, a shooting guard from Fresno State, was selected by the Indiana Pacers after averaging 15 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists per game in 2 seasons at Fresno State. Noted as one of the better shooters in the draft, George had very few teams interested in selecting him early because he was not seen as an offensive initiator. Even the Pacers selected him hoping to allow him to learn and grow under fellow star Danny Granger, but there is no introduction truly needed for Paul George as he has become the undoubtedly best and most successful player in the draft. Despite never making a finals appearance, George has obtained 7 All-Star appearances, 6 All-NBA teams, and 4 All-Defensive teams, all while averaging 20 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, and 4 assists per game, and continuing to play at a high level alongside teammate Kawhi Leonard to this day. While he has been berated for his lack of playoff success, a healthy season in LA could allow George and Leonard to form a dominant contending team and maybe even a finals run or a championship. In the end, though, George is no question the best player in the draft, and being selected 10th overall makes him a quality steal for the Pacers. And there you have it, the top 10 selections in the 2010 NBA draft. They have a big mixture of bust and boom potential, but only one of them truly made it to an all-star level caliber for his entire career, and that was Paul George, who was selected right at the last spot there at the end of the 10th spot. But at the end of the day, the 2010 draft did feature multiple other solid players, including guys like Eric Bledsoe, Ed Davis, Avery Bradley, and Hassan Whiteside, along with Lance Stevenson, Paul George's teammate for a long time there in Indiana. So the draft was not as bad as it appears in the top 10, but it did not have the star caliber players that we expect or have come to love across the NBA drafts, and that's where the other drafts will come into play. We are going to be looking at all of the drafts coming up to the previous one from 2010 onward throughout the next few weeks. Make sure to stay tuned for that if you enjoy these videos, and comment down below where you would rank this 2010 draft among its other 2010 counterparts. Thank you guys for watching this video. Hit the like button if you did enjoy. Make sure to subscribe. It helps me out so much to know you guys enjoy this type of content. As always, thank you guys for watching. Turn on post notifications so you always are up to date every video I post, and adios.